I am your host for this live stream, Cardin Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And we also have a guest with us via the California-based Zoom, because you always have to say the California-based Zoom now if you're Gavin Newsom, you know. So via Zoom, we've got Lutchi Gayot, or Gayot, however you want to pronounce it, with us, who's running for Congress in New York City. Actually, no, I shouldn't say New York City. I should say New York. And, yeah. So anyway, say hi, shout out. What's up, Lutchi?
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Thank you very much for having me on the show tonight. I'm definitely excited to speak about my platform, what's going on here in New York, and all the beautiful things we have coming in Florida, New York in the near future.
Yeah. And why you switched parties, you traitor. No, I'm just kidding.
And of course, before I was going through the show, just running through, and I guess we'll bring it up. So you are running for the 9th District in New York.
Yes.
I believe you ran again previously in 2018. That's what Carter was referring to as a Republican in 2018.
Yeah, woo!
So you made it onto the general, and then lost to the current incumbent, and then you'll be running in the Democratic primary this year. So that's just to let everyone know where we're at with this. So very cool. Sorry, just to catch everyone up, I'm going to make sure people knew what Cardin was talking about there. When he called you a traitor, when he was joking about
Great way to open an interview. Explain yourself. Explain yourself. Now, me and Cody were speculating. Actually, yeah, we'll get this out of the way. Great way to start off guns blazing. We're not doing the nice stuff in the beginning, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Let's jump right in. Let's go. I'm ready.
Me and Cody have a theory. It's impossible to win where you live as a Republican, so your only real choice is to join the Democratic Party if you ever aspire to actually making it into office. True or untrue? Me and Cody got money on this.
Well, I tell you what.
By the way, I know you have to spit some ideology or else they kick you out of the party, but we'll let you say what you got to say.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And right now in this country, I feel as if political, your political affiliations basically is going to decide whether or not you want to see in a certain district, regardless of what your actual proposals are. You can actually have good ideas, but be underneath the wrong party line, and people won't listen to your voice. So that is definitely absolutely true. I don't believe just because someone's from another party necessarily means that they don't have good ideas. But I also want to add that, I've been a Democrat my whole entire life. A lot of people don't know that. I've been a Democrat my whole entire life.
So you were a wolf in sheep's clothing when you ran as a Republican. He was a spy.
Well, here's the thing. At least for me, how I see it when it comes to political affiliation is just politics in general. I feel that we tend to get lost in the weeds when we tend to just look at a actual political party versus what ideas that particular individual has. I can't. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story. While I was out petitioning, and funny enough, I'll tell you, my platform real quick. I'm pretty sure I'm a UBI candidate, but aside from that, I want to bring the trades back into the schools. Well, hopefully, we get to speak more about that and how I came to that policy. I also want to make people's rent tax deductible because here in Brooklyn, rents are so high to the point where, in fact, one person who I met petitioning, he was making $50,000 a year, spending $24,000 a year on rent. He's paying his taxes on the full amount. So that should be something that's deducted. But furthermore, I feel like political affiliation tends to be the driving force behind a lot of people's decision making, as opposed to what ideas the actual candidate has. And like I was saying, while I'm petitioning, one person came up to me and he was like, I guess he recognized me from the previous race. He was like, "Oh, you were running as a Republican last time," and this and that and the third, and started this huge, fuss out in public. And I'm standing there saying, I'm not running for a party, man. I'm running for the people, and that's what I carry with me wherever I go, whichever party line I'm under. At the end of the day, you should be first and foremost running for the people, and your good ideas should be supported by by a party.
All right. I think that's a satisfactory answer. What do you think, Cody?
Well, for me, I personally don't mind. So I guess that for me. But no, I do thought that was really cool.
We'll let him into the interview.
Yeah,
we'll let him talk about
the-
UBI.
But
Fine, you can come in.
That led me to, though, because there's a couple of things. First of all, one of the main reasons we wanted to reach out to you is because you are one of the, I think I counted, and it's about 21 now, members of the UBI Caucus running for office in this 2020 election here with UBI as a part of your platform. And first thing I wanted to ask is going back to the idea you ran in 2018. So, especially in New York, what has it been like, man, trying to just run a campaign the last few months? Like, how many things have you had to kind of shift with what's been going on with current events, so to speak? I mean,
yeah, because you're the first one that has a before and an after. Generally, people are like, oh, I don't know, it was my first time running. But you've done this before, so I'm curious to see how things. We'll get onto the UBI and your good ideas later, but we're getting all the other fun stuff out of the way first. Like, how has it totally changed your campaigning process?
Yeah, and then just one. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
And then just the other thing I was going to ask too, just to the side of it too, is if any part of being part of the UBI caucus and kind of the online movement around UBI over the time, if that's just played in at all. But either way, same question.
Yes. Well, definitely. I mean, in terms of cyberspace, if we still use that terminology, definitely the UBI caucus, Gang, that whole entire support system online, definitely a help. As far as what's going on the ground, as you know, it's basically the law of the land that you can't be within 6 feet of anyone. In addition to that, you have to wear a face mask, so it's very difficult to go knock on doors. So
if you do it in all black with your face mask, do you notice that if you carry like a hammer while you're walking, like it just,
I haven't tried that. Maybe I should try that.
Like, I really wonder when people talk about like this is the new normal and we're gonna go back, or this is gonna be the way it is forever. I'm like, how do you tell the bad guys from the good guys at that point? Like when you go into a bank, you know?
It is kind of like I realized I was going to 7-Eleven the other day. I was walking in, I'm like, oh, I got to mask up, It's like I'm like a bank robber from like the, like I'm like John Doe. I got to mask up now. I'm going into a bank. I don't know. It's really weird though. But yeah, sorry, not to interrupt.
Yeah, it used to be if they had gloves on, you know what I'm saying? I'm gloves and a mask. You'd instantly think, oh, that's the bad guy. We're gonna start chasing after him. But now it's like the bad guy's the one without it.
Exactly. It's like in the city. And this is regulation. The city insists on you wearing a face scarf. So it's going to be interesting to see how the summer goes with that. It's going to be a fun summer.
All right. So you're a member of the UBI caucus, and you have previously run a couple of times, and now this is your first time, obviously, running your coronavirus. You get making some headway. Like, what have you noticed different this time around? Because obviously last time you weren't a UBI candidate last time, right?
No, last time I did run a progressive platform because I'm progressive regardless. So I ran a progressive platform, but I did not run on UBI. Even though I was pretty well informed on the concept of a UBI. But it was definitely not even something that was on the forefront in politics back in 2018.
Okay, so how's it received, man? What's the feedback?
Feedback, I tell you, man, it's like when I was out there collecting signatures, speaking to the constituents, and my whole entire platform would actually, I had my whole 30-second because in New York you need 1,250 signatures, but you usually got to double or triple that number. And I insisted on being out there and collecting a lot of signatures. Myself and my family, a lot of people, my family helped me out. Even my mother was out there. But in any case, so my 30-second spiel was basically talking about how I want to bring the trades back into the schools, making your rent tax deductible, and the UBI, and the reason for the UBI, I speak about, how a lot of jobs can be automated away. And if you go to a McDonald's, you take a look at that screen that you push, that's replacing a person. Imagine that multiplied over several different industries over the years. And the reason why UBI is necessary is to give a sort of floor, to at least for our generation and for generations to come, because our parents' generation failed to provide a floor. This is the reason why you see people sleeping on subway trains right now. So that's the kind of conversation I would have with constituents about why UBI is necessary. And not only that, but also why UBI makes economic sense. Every now and then I explain to or speak to the constituents about how we have what I like to call a poverty industrial complex in this country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in the poverty industrial complex, for instance, you have New York City, who spent $1 billion last year to house the homeless, but yet the homeless is still homeless. And the reason for this is because this $1 billion spent, if you do the math, it comes down to about $20,000 per homeless person, and it gets spent at for-profit shelters, for-profit hotels, for-profit entities that benefit off of poverty. Now, we could sit here and have an entire day worth of a conversation on how the poverty industrial complex is literally twice the size as the military industrial complex said, but yet still we never talk about it. You know, legislators come out and say, hey, you know what, we're going to put $1 billion towards homelessness. Everyone is happy about it because it feels good, but no one knows how to unbox the legislation and actually see that the money is going into a system that's designed and built to profit and benefit off of poverty. Now, having a universal basic income system, you know, instead of having this system set up where it's literally siphoning billions upon billions, trillions actually out of our budgets every single year, but it's better just to simply distribute the money to the people who will know better what to do with it. I mean, it's our money to begin with anyway.
So I'm really liking this. I'm really liking these stats because obviously Milton Friedman, the Republican, he I'm just doing this for Cody. He did postulate that one of the biggest benefits would be the elimination of the welfare state when he wrote in his book in 1964 on capitalism, where he pretty much introduced on a grand scale the concept of universal basic income, right? And so yes. I love that you're saying, okay, we've got this poverty industrial complex. And if I remember you correctly, you said it's about $25,000 per homeless person gets spent.
About $20,000 per homeless person, and yet they're still homeless. It's enough to buy a homeless family of 5 a house in upstate New York, man.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Andrew Yang's talking about $1,000 a month universal basic income. $25,000 is slightly over $2,000 a month. I mean, that's a pretty substantial universal basic income, and is what Utah did, basically did with their homeless program. Is they just went out and they actually just bought housing instead of starting these programs and these bureaucracies and everything. They literally just said, okay, homeless person A, here is house A. You know what I'm saying? And they would just like literally stick them in a house with very minimal stipulations. I think the only stipulation was that if you had a psychiatric issue, you had to go see a psychologist. That was it. But anyway, I like that because I've always thought this. I'm really excited about the New York City candidates, and I really hope that somehow somebody convinces Andrew Yang to run for governor of New York, because I lived in New York myself. I actually was on 22nd Street between 2nd and 3rd, baby. So, you know, yeah, I love New York. I think it's an awesome petri dish for this kind of thing. And if there's any place where it would make sense and could succeed first and fastest, I really honestly believe that place is New York City. And one of the reasons why is because there's so many insanely profitable things that you could tax. Now, Andrew Yang had talked nationally about the VAT tax. You know, I don't know if they could institute a VAT tax, but I always thought, why not tax tourism in New York City? If every tourist that came, you know, only had to pay like $2 for specific venues and events, like, because how many people there are in New York City is part of what makes it so cool, is you're going to the big city.
As someone who's never lived in New York City and has lived in California my whole life, if you told me they were charging you $2 to go on vacation, I'd be like, that sounds like New York City.
No, it would be incorporated. No, it would be incorporated naturally into the pricing structure of things.
I'm just saying, personally, as someone from California who's biased against New Yorkers, if I found out you guys had a tourism tax, I'd come out to you and I'd be like, well, what is this?
Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, New York City is swimming in taxes. So you could get rid of some of the stupid, wasteful ones and then actually just say, you know, like, okay, this one's going to fund a UBI. You know what I'm saying? So, by the way, I'm just spitballing here, okay? I'm not saying that I've thought about this and hired a think tank to develop my UBI concepts for New York City, but I was just throwing that out as an example. But there's so many things that are highly profitable that could be taxed without becoming burdensome that could really fund a massive UBI program that could be very successful. You know what I'm saying? Because there is a much more collectivist, we're in this together mentality in New York City that exists simply because of not just the culture, but the lifestyle. You literally have like 4,000 people crammed into a building that's 50 stories tall. You know what I'm saying? So my curiosity is, now that you're running on UBI, I have found it difficult myself to explain it to people without veering verbose. Yet getting all those signatures is a million elevator pitches. Like, how do you compact your candidacy as a UBI candidate into just an elevator pitch? Like, what do you tell people? Like, I mean, because explaining a value-added tax alone is like a 30-minute conversation for some of these people. You know what I'm saying? So, let alone UBI plus a VAT tax. I mean, getting Andrew Yang off my chest to some of these people took 20 minutes. How do you do it in 20 seconds when you're on the subway and you're on the L train and you're about to get off in Union Square and, you know, you're only 15 blocks away? Like, how do you get that out in enough time? You know what I'm saying, man? What do you do?
I mean, even though I've been on the L train quite a few times, over out to Williamsburg, but I mean, pretty much it's a pretty quick and easy sell. I mean, everyone understands the concept of having access to upward mobility in this country, you know, so it's pretty easy to sell, you know, in a 30-second pitch. I mean, the long and short of it is, you know, I usually tell them, hey, our parents' generation failed. Our generation, this is why people are sleeping on the trains right now. So we need to put or give the next generation a floor, you know, a bottom, you know, somewhere to start in order to have some sort of upward mobility. I mean, guys, the concept is real simple. I mean, for instance, if we want to think in terms of business, I mean, what business do you know can start and become successful without some sort of working capital? You know, I mean, imagine what would have happened to Facebook if Mark Zuckerberg didn't get $500,000 from Peter Thiel. You know, would it still be a Facebook? He would need that. He needed that capital to get started. Well, I mean, in terms of every single entity or human being that exists in this country, I mean, we need some sort of starting capital in order for us to start our own lives, or if you want to call it business, you know, because when you go to work in a job, you know, if you want to talk in terms of how economists would look at this, when you go to work at a job, you're selling your time. You are a vendor of time, you know, and the time and the markets and the job market determines how much that time is worth. So if you think of it in these type of terms, it's very easy to understand why a UBI is necessary, particularly in this country and particularly in this time.
Okay. So, I like that a lot. Now, this, man, part of me is a little bit jealous of you because I think, what a perfect time. But also, part of me is putting myself in your shoes, thinking, what a daunting task, you know, to try and take this. Like, it's already hard enough running for Congress when you've got friends and donors and it's a competitive race. Like, it's already hard enough when all things are equal. It gets even harder when money is unequal. And then it gets even harder when money is unequal. And then also your ideology needs to get explained. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just adds so many more links to the chain. I'm not here to say that it can't be done, but I'm here to cheer on the people that are actually trying to do it and also get a feel for the experience and so on and so forth. So describe your race to me. Like, what kind of predicament are you in? I mean, because we tried looking at this for some pre-show prep.
Well, one thing I saw that was interesting, just taking a look, was that in the primary in 2018, the current incumbent, I believe she only won by like 6 points over another gentleman who's also running, I believe, in the same primary, correct? So it's definitely a competitive field, it looks like.
That is correct. That is correct. So, and funny enough, in my general, when I ran, it was the very first time that a candidate got that many votes for that particular line. You know, so I got 20,901 votes. That's never occurred before in a midterm election for that line. You know, so I actually went out and I actually campaigned. Mm-hmm. And I actually had 20,901 votes out of 20,901 votes. And the majority of those votes were from registered Democrats who came out and voted for me.
That's very good.
In the rain.
Yeah, that's very.
So I have some baked in votes in this election.
Well, that's very cool, man. And then so just also the other thing I wanted to ask, I didn't have time to look into it. I was wondering. It seems so. It looks like the 9th was it. I didn't see, but it looks like another district was folded in a couple of years back. Just give us a general layout of kind of where your district lays, what kind of demographics are. Is it? I have to admit, does it cover a lot of the city? Kind of where is it?
Correct. So it doesn't cover any of Manhattan at all. That's our neighboring district, District 10, that covers quite a bit of Manhattan. Well, our
you're the south side of Brooklyn, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Pardon me?
Wait, you're in Brooklyn, right?
Yes, Brooklyn.
You're on Brooklyn. You're in this. Okay, you're in central, not in the southern part of Brooklyn. Okay, I briefly glanced at the map, but then I couldn't remember exactly see where the dot was, and I couldn't zoom in because my internet connection was slow. You know what I was saying? But okay, cool, rock on. So you're in central Brooklyn. Keep going.
Yes, so it's central, and it actually stretches all the way south to the water. So it's a pretty big district. So it starts right about Atlantic Avenue in one part where the Barclays Center is, goes down Dean all the way to the other side, and it goes all the way down to Sheepshead Bay. So it's a pretty big district for its size, population density, depending on where you are in a district. And more southern parts not as dense as the northern is, but it's definitely an interesting district. It has a park. Prospect Park is in the district. You've got parts of Kings Highway that's in the district. Sheepshead Bay.
Yeah, dude, so who's your competition, man? Talk to us about your competition.
So the competition that I'm going up against is obviously the incumbent, and we've got the gentleman.
Get him out of there! Get him out of there! Chumps, get him out of there! Anyway, keep going. Yeah.
So you've got the incumbent. You also have the gentleman that ran against her the last time. He's also in the race as well. Then you have another gentleman. He's DSA, Democratic Socialist of America. He's in the race also. Then we have another gentleman who is currently a sitting city council member. And so he decided to jump in the race. He jumped in the race actually pretty late. I would say he jumped in January. So he's from the southern part of the district. And since his city council district overlaps the southern portion of the district, so I guess he sees an opportunity to be competitive, so he threw his hat in as well.
Okay. Do any of them are any of them up ahead by a lot, or is this pretty wide open?
This race, I believe, is pretty wide open. It's a pretty wide open race. It's a lot of territory to cover. There are a lot of voters in this district. So it's just a matter of how many voters you manage to be able to speak to and reach, and earn their vote.
Yeah, because I've looked at this and I've thought, what a great time for an underdog idea candidate to hit during coronavirus, where all of the advantages that money brings you are kind of neutralized. Yeah, sure, you could buy more Facebook ads, and I'm sure there's people on online a lot more now. But also, you actually have a chance to flesh out these conversations when you do have the few times that they're able to start. You're able to do a lot of interviews like this. It's not necessarily because I think it advantages the little guy as much as it just takes away a lot of the advantages that the big guys with deeper pockets and deeper connections have. That's just a theory of mine. Have you found that to be true or no?
I find it to be absolutely true. When you are the bigger guys, or at least someone who is financed by the bigger guys, rather, definitely when it's a regular everyday election, there are certain things that they get to do that other people don't. In terms of the amount of money that they're able to put onto the street, just to make it impossible for you to get any kind of traction. If you can imagine them being able to put $1 million out there to get people to knock on doors if they needed to. Knocking on doors, that's kind of out of play right now. Yeah. So it's all about who's going to be able to play this Tiger game the best.
And is that where the Yang
That's
Gang's
what's gonna
coming
win.
in, or what? Or how you getting that?
Pardon?
How you getting that cyber game up and running? Is that where the Yang Gang's helping you out, or are you just good at it yourself? How do you do that?
That's a trade secret.
Ooh, you know this guy's got an algorithm. Now, I love your website, dude. I love your website. Please tell me the picture at the top of your website is authentic and candid. And I want to know how it was, if it were, how it was shot, because that is one of the single best Brooklyn grassroots politician pictures I've ever seen in my life. Cody, could you pull it up? Like, I mean, that is awesome. You got the guy just looking right down at this pamphlet that you can tell he just got, and you're smiling, looking over his shoulder. I was like, man, if I were a photographer, I couldn't even stage this that good. That is just like legit. It's the reverse of what happened to me. It was always on the high holy days that, you know, the rabbis wait outside of the subways and they want to, you know, pray with you and give you blessings if they suspect you're Jewish. And I guess I got a Jewish look, or else my beard was just really long back then or something. But they'd always, yeah, I'm Polish. Your mic's not on. But anyway, they'd always stop me and ask me, like, are you Jewish? You want to pray with us? I'm like, no, I'm not, but I'll pray for you. And someone would be like, okay. And I'll just be like, no, we'll wait for another Jew. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, dude, that was whenever I visited my buddy in Brooklyn. It was pretty funny. But anyway, I absolutely love that picture. How did that come about, man?
Man, I tell you, it's one of those pictures that's just meant to be. You know, it's one of those meant to be type of photos. It wasn't even. I was in the middle of saying something to him, and I happened to have a buddy of mine who does photography who came out with me that day when we were doing some door knocking, and the gentleman just happened to come out of his home, and I was speaking to him in the front. I gave him the palm card. You know, and as he was turning around to whatever, and I just said something to him, and my buddy had the camera, and he just looked up, and it was just a perfect.
Oh,
so
that's epic.
We didn't even know we had the shot.
Yeah.
You know, until like way later. It's like I kept going past this shot. I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
This is like a really good shot.
Dude, man, your whole campaign is worth that shot. Like, as much as I am invested in UBI, bro, you got kids? You a father?
Not as yet.
Okay, well, when you do, dog, frame that thing. Frame that thing on the wall, so every day when they come home, they're like, my dad is officially cool, man. he is Brooklyn politician cool, man. That's just a cool picture right there. That's pride material right there, man. That's pride material. So
I definitely frame that.
So I'm just really curious. You know, Brooklyn is such a diverse place. I mean, it's absolutely nuts. People don't realize this, but actually Astoria, just barely north of you, is literally scientifically the most diverse community in the world. There's more languages spoken, more people from different countries, and more cultures combined per block and per square mile than on any other square mile in the world is Astoria. And Brooklyn is like, I swear it's a close second. You know what I'm saying? There's just people from all kinds of different areas and walks of life and so on and so forth there. Do you notice that there's any kind of demographic, any kind of age, any kind of people, any kind of anything that is receptive first, like that you get an in with first? Is the response to UBI as universal as it aspires to be? Like, you're out there knocking doors knowing like who's likely to listen, not listen. Do you notice that there's any cream of the crop that rises to the top, or is it all pretty much the same?
I'll say to you, I'm getting about a 99% hit rate. But I would say depending on what part of the district, but I would say you're getting about a 99% hit rate on UBI. You know, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's social engineering or whatever it is, for whatever reason, people just tend to, like, whenever UBI first enters or tries to enter the mind, like it bounces off, you know, until somebody actually gets to really understand the concept of it and why it makes more sense than any other social program that's out there. You know, so it's a pretty easy sell, man. Like, once it's a one-on-one conversation, it doesn't take a lot of selling.
Okay. All right, cool, sweet. Because I mean, I I'm frustrated. Obviously, I'm sure you are, that all these candidates are running, but unable to have those truly authentic face-to-face conversations. You know what I'm saying? And it's proven that what are called I can't remember what the sociologist called it, but spontaneous interactions. Spontaneous interactions oftentimes breed some of the best relationships that people have in their lives, or just where you meet at a common place. And in New York, you're constantly meeting people. It's such a human environment. I love it because there's just you're rubbing shoulders constantly with other folks, like really in the flesh, not virtually over Zoom, not on Facebook, not in a chat room, not in a video game. You're constantly just there in your face, and it's so hard not to be influenced by those around you, and good ideas can take off so quickly. So unfortunately, you can't go out and you can't just talk to people, you know what I'm saying? But you're able to start those conversations. Like, how do you, like, what do you do if you can't go out knocking doors anymore? Do you like just hit the doorbell on the electric doorkeeper or whatever they call it? I can't remember what the term is. I know what it is in Argentina. They call it el portero eléctrico, which literally means the electric doorkeeper. But just start ringing doorbells and talking through the speaker. What do you do?
Well, I mean, you can't. I know, right? Just go to a building, just like press every. You know what? That might not be a bad idea.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's social distancing, right? And you're not allowed to contact them on the street now. So it's like, I was a missionary. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I actually like that idea. I go on. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna go press somebody's buzzer and be like, "Hey, I'm Lutchi. I'm running for Congress. Do you have a minute?"
Yeah, dude.
Tell you about my platform. I'm gonna bring trades back to the schools and the UBI, make your rent tax deductible.
Yeah. Now talk to me also about, because this is something else I'm really passionate about here. And I know we're getting towards the end of the interview time, but and we have predominantly talked about UBI, and that's one of the things that really got us excited at Problem Solver Politics to start our channels. But you've also mentioned something else that I'm very, very passionate about. I hate how I love how Marco Rubio said it. He said, we've gotten to a point where we've stigmatized the trades. And the world doesn't need more 17th century German philosophers. We need more carpet layers, more carpenters, more mechanics, and you say you want to bring the trades back to the schools, bring the trades back to the schools. I am super passionate about that, and I've actually been very supportive and vocal in my local community as well, in needing that, and even offered to teach the pest control courses at the local community college. And I think it would be great to teach juniors and seniors, so when they graduate, they actually have a job once they turn 18. Because some of these licenses are hard enough to get where it's slightly prohibitive, but not so hard that it couldn't be taught to in one semester to a junior or a senior who's about to graduate, right? So when you say bring the trades back to the schools, like do you have any specific policy proposals? Do you have any ideas? Or is it just like, we need to destigmatize blue collar work? Like what do you mean when you say bring the trades back to schools?
Yeah, bring the trades back to the schools. I think it's even bigger than that. It's economic, it's industrial, it's economic development, infrastructure, it's everything. And the reason why I say this is I keep saying we need a World War II-like effort to bring the trades back to the schools, especially in robotics and AI, because no one in DC is talking about robotics and AI. But believe me, in China they are, in Europe they're also talking about robotics and AI. No one's talking about it here in the US, and I feel we need a World War II-like effort so that we could catch up to the rest of the world. And what better way to do it than to among other skills and certifications in high school, also robotics and AI, because I feel that's the future of industry in this country. By 2025, every vehicle that comes off an assembly line in this country is going to be autonomous in some shape or form. We're going to need people to service these vehicles. We're going to need people who graduate high school to understand what a step loader is. We're going to need people who understand what LiDAR is. And I don't think we have the time to say, well, you're going to go through 4 years of high school, come out with no marketable skills, be forced to go to some sort of, really expensive college or even a trade school where you have to pay money to go to, or the government has to spend more money to send you to. I feel we could kill two birds with one stone, retool and rework our curriculums in the high schools that we already have in order to have some of these programs, in order to give our future generation a sort of safety net right in their high school education.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true because honestly, high school education suck. Half these college educations suck now. It's like you have to get high school out of the way just so you can be done with it, so you can go to college, and you don't even really learn anything valuable in college. You just got to get it done. So, I mean, half the stuff they teach you, like especially, I mean, in engineering and a lot of the sciences, except for some basic coding, some of the STEM stuff is really, really good. But so many times in so many classes, I started out as a mechanical engineering and physics major. So many times they said, yeah, this is old junk. Just take the test on it. You'll be taught what software you need to use when you get your job at wherever you go, like Boeing or wherever. Like all the do you really feel like the average guy that goes through K through 12 and that does 4 years of a basic state school has that 9 out of 10 of them are prepared for the market and prepared for the job that they want, that they could hit the ground running? No, nobody feels that way.
No, not at all. I actually feel it's another industrial complex, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger one as time goes by.
Yeah, they'll take your money. They'll put you $100,000 in debt, but everything they say they're going to prepare you for isn't there. They don't give you any kind of job placement. They're not boosting these industries. And then you can go to film school. Yeah, do you got a job at Warner Brothers the next day? No. You know what I'm saying? Like you can go to any school. You can go. I mean, the only schools that work, honestly, are like trucker schools, even though those are waning because the amount of truckers are, getting less and less every year. Like the trade schools actually do feed into the different job markets. But like your average 4-year institutions are money grab bags that don't actually leave their students prepared nor give them decent job placement afterwards. Yet they do have no problem mailing on time that bill for your student loan. It's if we've almost made it, we've marketed to the American people that college is so important that really now there's been an entire generation that has grown up thinking that if you didn't go to college, you were somehow a failure. We've literally stigmatized not going. Okay. I'll sit down guys that have been underemployed or unemployed for 2 or 3 years after graduation. And I'll say, hey, come work with us in pest control, get your license. I'll teach you how to do termite work. And they'll be like, oh, I don't know if I feel good about $20 or $25 an hour blue collar. I got an education. They're always saying like, well, that's not what I went to school for. Oh, do you have any office job? So they'd rather take a $14 an hour clerical position than go make double that working with their hands out in the field, because we have stigmatized so much blue collar work, working with your hands, that we're never going to become the manufacturing powerhouse that won World War II. Like you say, we're never going to become the manufacturing powerhouse, okay, that made in the USA a meaningful thing for the first 100 years. It was a meaningful thing. We're never going to get there with this idea that, if you work with your hands, that's somehow lesser.
I agree. I 100% agree. Man, I also think that our leaders, our politicians, need to be more realistic in the way that they speak to us as Americans. Yeah. I like to think that Americans are not stupid. If we are going to honestly compete with China, we can't just stand up and say, hey, we're going to compete with China. We actually have to have an economic system designed and built to compete with China. And a part of that system needs to have the trades in the schools, because, again, believe you me, in China, people are being trained to do all sorts of things. This is the reason why they have several autonomous car manufacturers. They're really, really highly proficient manufacturing robotics. A lot of that technology are technologies that were originated right in our Silicon Valley, and they are now developing those technologies and distributing them out throughout the world while we are playing catch up. So we definitely need to have a serious conversation about this in Washington, D.C., because I feel like, this is more of a national issue than anything else.
Yeah. So 2 more questions, and I think Cody's got one more. I'm squeezing him in here. Have you gotten any love from Humanity Forward? You're a UBI candidate.
I haven't as yet, so I am looking for the endorsement. So
we got to put their feet to the fire, man. Heidi Briones hasn't gotten any love yet either, and she's up in Oregon 1. We're just like, hey, come on, man. You guys, you said you'd be supporting all these candidates. You better get out there They're running on UBI. They're knocking doors. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna.
Yeah, man. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But either way, I'm gonna keep pushing on and just keep speaking to our local constituents and just keep telling them about what it is that I'm trying to bring to the table, which is more affordable housing by way of housing bonds. I don't think we touched on that, but by way of housing bonds, we want to bring the trades back into the schools in terms of more federal investment in order for us to retool our high schools and junior high schools in some cases to teach some sort of trade programs in order to certify our kids coming out of high school, and just simply just bring good pragmatic ideas to Washington, D.C., where I feel they've lost their way.
Okay, that's very euphemistic and kind of you to say they have lost their way. I like that. That's not the terminology I would have used, but I definitely think your diplomacy is on point. Okay, so I know this is cheesy and this is kind of a cliche question, but I gotta ask it because I think it is pretty good. Let's say you win. Okay, let's say you win. What's the first thing you do when you're in office, my man? What's the first thing you do?
Very first thing I do, office.
You pick up the phone and you make that first guy. It's your first legislative act, man. What? Or no, I shouldn't say legislative because you don't control the legislature, but it's your first official act. What do you do, man?
Man, my very first official act is going to be to fulfill a campaign promise. So I have a couple of different campaign promises. One of which is the UBI. I really feel it would be a time for a conversation, a national conversation, to keep it real with you. I'd like to be able to have a conversation perhaps with someone, not just someone, but just a group of people, just to really figure out what is it that we need to do next in order for this country to move forward. I feel that's just where we are. We're to the point where we need to have a national conversation. Hey, we can't keep going in this direction. I mean, in the room where you are, there's one of you that's a Republican, one of you that's that's not. So one person's on the left, one person's on the right. But I guarantee you, two of you have a lot more in common than you have different. You could argue certain points and whatnot is happening in the media or whatever given time, but the long and short of it is you mean well for each other.
Yeah.
And I think we need that mean well for each other type of conversation again.
Okay, so and this is my last question that I've also had for you. A lot of people, when Andrew Yang started, were very enthusiastic about his campaign and they were very enthusiastic about UBI, but we really cut our teeth on this channel analyzing and discussing his specific policy proposals, because Andrew Yang on his website had at one point upwards of 200 individual policy proposals, and we would go in one by one making a video over everyone. And what was interesting, I want to ask you about immigration, because I had said early on, dude, nobody realizes Andrew Yang's immigration policy is super conservative, because in his own words, if you read his policy platform, in a nutshell, he's basically saying, look, if I'm going to give away all this free money, we got to be real tight. You know what I'm saying? On who's entitled and who's eligible and who isn't. So big ideas also insinuate big responsibility. And I love the concept of UBI, but that's something that can't be played with fast and loose. We've got a massive immigration problem in the United States of America. No matter which way you look at it, it is broken. Okay, you can make a million comparisons. The hole in the bottom of a ship. I don't know. Whatever comparison you want to make. All right. There is. It's just broken. It's just plain old broken. And there's heartbreaking stories on every side of this. Right. So if we introduce UBI, Universal Basic Income, to every single eligible citizen in the United States of America that's over 18, getting X amount of dollars. Andrew Yang suggested 1,000. Some people think it would be best at 2,000, but whatever the number is, how do you square that with immigration? Like what do you suggest we do? Because we can't just kick out everybody. Can't do that. Okay? Doesn't make any sense. We can't just give away a bunch of money to people we don't know who they are, how they exist, or how to verify that identity. Like, there would have to be some kind of, if it is an entitlement program, there would have to be some kind of massive registration or what? Like how do you do this? Because we're seeing this with the Trump checks right now. A lot of people saying, well, hey, I didn't get mine. Well, are you in the system? Did you file your taxes? Oh, wait, no, but I was below the poverty line. You know, it's just an absolute mess. And though the government had a great idea of, hey, let's just send out these checks to everybody for coronavirus, we're seeing that it's just not working. Some of these municipalities have less than a 4% fulfillment of their unemployment claims, which means a 96% failure, right? So,
you're absolutely right.
What do we do with citizenship? And what do we do with immigration? Because you can't be giving checks to all these citizens if you don't know who they are. And also, we can't afford to give these big checks to everybody that wants to come. There is an element of scarcity to this. If we have budgeted for UBI, how do we execute it with the existing immigration program?
All right. So what you're saying there is it's an exact example of what is wrong with how our government operates in general. You know, for instance, if you go to China, I guarantee you in China, they could pull up a computer and tell you exactly how many Chinese people are in China at that exact time. They'll tell you down to the person. You know, here, we don't even know how many Americans have an American passport. You know, so that's part of the system that's going to need to be fixed. You know, the part where we need to know how many people we have in this country. And we've been doing better at it ever since 9/11. Things have been getting tighter. I'm pretty sure if you were old enough to be able to get a license back before 9/11, you know how much easier it was to do than now. But I still feel like our government in general, state and federal, needs to really get a handle on who's who in this country. You know, if they got to go back over, well, how many passports we have, social security numbers, you know, bring in people from Silicon Valley, go over all the data, so we can figure out exactly who's who. We need to do that. That should be part of the legislation. You know, if we're going to pass a UBI legislation, part of that package should have funding for making sure that we know who's in this country and who's an American and who's not. Now, in terms of immigration, I do feel like immigration is necessary, but along with the UBI package, and I say package is because I feel we need to also have other parts of the economy function for that UBI mechanism. You know, if we're going to make that economic machine work and add the UBI part to it, we got to make sure that healthcare will also function well. We got to make sure that education will also function well. We also got to make sure that immigration functions well. And if we look at this country at 350 some odd million people, I think we have a lot more room for economic expansion if we know how to do it. I think we have a lot more room for development if we know how to do it. If we know how to take advantage of robotics, if we know how to take advantage of AI, we can expand our economy even more and bring in more immigrants in this country and have a process to become a citizen. UBI, I also believe, adds value to the American citizenship. You know, it actually adds a value to it to where when people want to come into this country, they want to come and respect our laws, respect what it is that we are trying to achieve as Americans here in America, because of the fact that we have such a well-oiled machine as a system, you know, including with that UBI to give people upper mobility. So that's the way I see this should be done.
All right, awesome. So Cody, I'm totally spent. Oh, I could talk all day, but I'm totally spent out of the regular. He won't get in trouble for answering them questions. You know what I'm saying? You got anything? You got anything for a man, Gayot? Actually, what's the authentic French way of saying it, my man?
Gayot.
Gayot.
Silent.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Gayot. All right. So, future Representative Gayot, you got anything for him, Cody? Hit him.
Well, honestly,
Hey,
he
Cody.
covered a lot
Give
of
what
stuff.
you got, baby. Give what you got. Give me
Now
anything.
we started up, he covered a lot of the stuff that I was going to talk about. Let's see. How about this? First of all, let everybody know really quickly where they could find you on social media, websites, and all that stuff, and then I'll have a good question for you. Come 1 second.
Okay, wonderful. So you can find me at teamgayot.com. That's TEAMGAYOT.com, teamgayot.com. I'm on Twitter at Lutchi Gayot. That's LUTCHIGAYOT, Lutchi Gayot. Also, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, same handle. So follow me, whichever platform. Come look for me. Send me a DM. I'll be glad to answer. That's how to get in touch.
All right.
All right, very cool. And now I guess I gotta ask a question. But seriously, I wonder about this, and it's a little bit of an aside, but how do I put this? How do you feel about? And it's a total aside of what I'm personally interested in. Being in New York, I know New York as well as 6 other states in the Northeast have kind of partnered up and decided they're going to kind of handle the reopening efforts and the coronavirus on their own. Out here in the West, we have what they're going to call the Western States Pact, which will be encompassing 3 states. I'm just wondering kind of where your stance is on the idea of small regional partnerships being formed almost to handle reopening in their areas, especially being in New York City, where I imagine it is kind of unique there as opposed to what nationally could be imposed.
Yeah, correct. In New York, especially if you're on this side of the country, people always speak about the tri-state area,
Yeah.
And this is the reason why we need to have some sort of coordination, because the tri-state area, sometimes you could live in Connecticut, but you work in New York. You know, live in New York, but you work in New Jersey. So it's absolutely necessary for the states to coordinate with each other. It should not be a federal effort. As you can see what's going on with the federal effort in distributing money. So, I mean, they do a good job at collecting it. You know, we got to give them that. But they do a really bad job at giving it back. But back to the states, definitely think it's necessary for the states to communicate, especially in New York.
And then,
especially in New York.
Of course. And then again, this is where my interests lie. What is again, picking up because being in New York City, kind of what is you just personally think the way to go when there is that, I guess, disagreement, that conflict there, right? I mean, what does happen if you're living in New York City and you say, hey, look, no, as representative here, we're not ready to reopen, and the federal government starts pressuring it? Just kind of personally, what do you think? Where do states and local reps do play in there?
States and local reps, I mean, the local reps are probably going to end up winning that battle, because again, I mean, the federal government does hold the bag, but when a law is passed, the money still has to go. So it doesn't matter what the federal government says. Once they earmark that money, it's still going into whatever districts it's supposed to go into. Now, back to the means and ways of getting things done, I believe it's got to be local, and as local as possible, especially when it comes to, we got a subway system here, which is massive, an education system, which is massive. Federal government doesn't really have a good handle on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's all local.
No, of course, but that's why it's really fascinating to me looking at that, because it's always one of the things when they talk about handling how we're going to handle reopening or any of that stuff. It's like, well, I mean, not every part is New York City, not everything's Florida, not everything's Iowa, right? Like, you have to understand that we have to do things locally. So I think that is cool. Yeah,
some states
I think
aren't
it's
really
important.
hit that hard.
Yeah, it's important for people to have local reps who are like, well, I live in the city and these are my constituents. I can tell you what it's like, as opposed to federally top down. So I think it's very interesting, man.
All right, so you got anything else you want to say before we finish, man? Any closing words? Hit us, Lutchi.
Closing words. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for letting me participate in this show. Everyone out there, please again come out. Look for me online, Lutchi Gayot. I am a candidate who is not part of the system, not part of the machine. I am running on a grassroots platform to bring the trades back into the schools. I want to make rent tax deductible for the constituents in my congressional district on Brooklyn, New York. And I also want to bring a UBI to give upward mobility to every American over the age of 18, because in this country, there shouldn't be any reason for people to go hungry. But not only that, there shouldn't be a reason for us to have such an enormous industrial complex which benefits off of poverty as opposed to giving the money to the people. So this is what I stand on. Again, thank you very much for coming out and supporting.
All right, so he's got the single best political campaign picture I have seen in this election cycle. I absolutely love it. It's Lutchi Gayot. Check him out. Vote for him. If you're in Brooklyn, vote for him, and it's easy to vote in Brooklyn. All right, it's super easy to vote.
Yes.
You're tripping over polling locations. Like they're literally like every 2 blocks in November. Okay, you can't get from the subway station to your house without passing 4 polling locations. All right, so everybody, make sure you get out to vote for Lutchi Gayot. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next video.
June 23rd.
June 23rd.